So now it is my great honor to introduce with me today, because we're in dialogue with Lissa Coffey. And Lissa is not only a prolific best-selling author, she's world-renowned authority on Ayurvedic medicine and also relationships. She's founder of coffeetalk.com, and she's been on so many local and national television shows. And what I love is Deepak Chopra wrote in one of her books, "Your heart will thank you for Lissa's helpful and heartful vision," and it's so true. And then I just looked up on her bio, and go to her YouTube channel too. I hope she promotes herself before she goes. But when she's not writing, she is a writer, but also, and if she can promote this and talk about this before she goes, she is a lyricist and a composer, and she is creating, and I don't want to say much more, a musical play that will go worldwide. I know this. I know it in my heart of hearts, and I think a lot of people do, and I'd like her to talk about it before she leaves. But when she's not busy writing books, she's busy in the kitchen cooking, that little homemaker that she is, making Ayurvedic and Vedic vegan meals. So anyway, welcome, Lissa Coffey. Thank you for being with us, sweetheart.
Thank you, Pam. You know I love you, and I love your center. It's beautiful. Always have a good time with you guys.
Oh, and not only we love you, and I miss you one-on-one so much. And one of the things to add to your bio, I'm out of breath saying all that you do. It's exhausting just even reading it. No, truly, you're so talented. But you're not only a dear friend for years now, but I miss you as our teacher one-on-one in our classes.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have to pick up right where we left off, because there's so much to cover. We've been learning about Vedanta, which is awesome. And I miss Swami coming there once a month for our Bhakti yoga classes. But
I miss him. Is he ever going to meet in person again?
Yeah, oh, sure. We're working on it. Yeah, we're working on it.
Okay, now I will get back to our talk, but we need to Zoom talk. Okay, so anyway, we're going to go back, and now we're going to talk, and our talk is about mindfulness in action. And I just thought this is a perfect time. That talk was given to us by CS, not given to us, but was they give out a list of talks from Centers for Spiritual Living every month, and this was the one for today. And I thought, in this time of coronavirus, it is one of the greatest awakenings that this energetic shift has ever had, is this mindfulness to wake us up and to deal with this pandemic and to rise above this global challenge. We have to answer to that one great call to step up and shine our light into awakening to all the places broken in our spiritual oneness. And it's because it's so much deeper than what we see. We see this virus and we know that we are responsible for having it go worldwide, but it affects everything, our societies, the economies, and the cause, again, is our own, coming from, I believe it's all an inside job, our own deepest consciousness, and it's coming up to be cleansed and clear. And as JFK said, it's our job to step up and shine our light for the common good, because as JFK said again, our president, President Kennedy, it's easy. It sounds not because it's easy, but it's because it's hard, and it means for our survival worldwide now. And I'm going to turn this over to you, Lissa.
Okay, well, I mean, you said a lot there, and I think that a big part of it is it's not just the virus that's going on right now. There's so much going on in the world, and it's not like it just happened. This has been happening all along, but either we weren't aware of it, or we didn't pay attention to it, or it didn't affect us, so our attention was elsewhere. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I thought we'd start by looking at the Buddhist definition of mindfulness. Like, what is mindfulness? How is mindfulness going to help us get through all this? Well, mindfulness, according to the Buddha, is remembering to observe how mind's attention moves from one thing to another as things arise unasked, and then they completely pass away when they've run their course. So you can see how distracted we've been and looking here and there and this and that with politics and the virus and protests and masks and whatever. Everything seems to be a controversy. And how do we, integrate all of that into our minds, process it, and then take some kind of action that's going to be meaningful?
What you said was so true. It's so way beyond the virus. It just gave us, it's like a metaphor of how we are on this little planet all by ourselves. And I always say we drink the same water, breathe the same air, and we've been drinking the same water and breathing the same air from everybody, from eons ago, from the time of the beginning of who we are. And this is breaking down all the boundaries and showing us what a small little beautiful island we are. And if we do not shift in our consciousness and stop pointing fingers out there instead of looking at our own selves more and being more mindful of who we are and how our job is to rise above even the pettiness and the pettiness of what's out there. This is what I see anyway.
Absolutely. I mean, it's no coincidence that these things came up now, because spiritually, the virus is a demonstration, a physical, realistic demonstration of how we are all connected. Our breath, everything, the infection has grown. The virus doesn't know boundaries. The virus doesn't know countries or the edge of wherever anything is. That's all man-made concepts, we are all connected. And then this racism stuff comes up and we're like, yeah, we're all connected. So now, why wasn't that solved before? Why is it coming up again? It's because, you know what? It wasn't solved before. We assumed it was, and it's like, okay, that's good. We're done with that. On to the next. Our mind shifts, but it was never really taken care of. And that's the problem.
I agree. It's interesting because this is what's so interesting to me is I've watched that. We all watch this. We've all been immersed in all of this, submerged in all of it. And what's interesting is it's way beyond the racial boundaries right now, as you said just so eloquently just a moment ago. But what it looks like to me is that because of the pandemic, a lot of us sequestered. It was like the volcano, and everything now is coming up for it to be cleansed, to cleanse that plate, to cleanse that slate and start fresh and realize that it is not this body that is experiencing all of this. It is our souls. Our souls have no color. Our souls have been chosen, I believe, to be here right now so that we are part of the solution and getting out of this problem, but also paying attention to the physicality of wearing the masks and being aware that everyone is responsible for spreading this. It's in our hands. Heart by heart, it works hand by hand and breath by breath. We are spreading this. And so it's our own, again, inside job, personal job to stay safe so that the world literally stays safe.
Mm-hmm. And racism is another pandemic. It's just in the system, it's in the mind, and it spreads. We see how parents are spreading it to their kids. There's no reason why little kids should be racist at all, right? But they get it from their parents, just like you would get any other virus from your parents. And these things need to be healed on a very deep level, so that we can go forward and live the life we were really meant to live.
It's so interesting because, it is interesting what we spread. My daughter is so cautious with her children, and now Allison is not afraid of anything except people. So someone gets close 6 feet, and she's going to be 4 on the 4th of July, but someone gets 6 feet and she runs to her mom. And I thought, this is something else. She's not nothing scares her except the physicality of strangers. And I thought, oh boy, this is the COVID generation coming up. It's really interesting. I also want one more thing, and then I want you to talk a lot. But it is so interesting. I'm doing the Ho'opono meditations in the morning, and it's all based on going deeper into that soul and connecting to that one great connector, which is love. And all of the mantra, which is, I'm not, I won't say this again, but I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, it's all in that loving presence. And when you go to that place of deeper understanding who we are God, the divine in action, which is love, then it shifts not only you, it shifts everyone around you.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And Allison is going to grow up to be a leader, and she won't be afraid forever. But, I think that this younger generation, like your kids' age and my kids' age, they're like in their 30s now. They're the leaders who are stepping up and who are so vocal about Black Lives Matter and making a difference in the community. They see things differently than the older generations, like our parents' generations and stuff. And I think part of the problem, not getting too political, is that a lot of those leaders, it has been time to change for a long time. There needs to be things like term limits so that they're not these dinosaurs with these old school thoughts and modalities that are trying to run things for a new generation. But, mindfulness, the way the Buddha talked about it, and it's interesting because mindfulness in action almost seems, like opposite of things, right? Because there's mindfulness is more like going within, and action is taking action. But we have to get our own minds clear first before we can take it out. Otherwise, we're infecting people with just more chaos, right? I see people every day randomly posting stuff on Facebook that they're sharing, and they're not even reading it. It's like controversy. They're feeding off the controversy, and they know they're going to get a lot of hits and likes for it. But we need to be really clear and get ourselves settled. So the Buddha has these 4 foundations of mindfulness, and it's this progressive stage of practicing mindfulness. And the first one is mindfulness of the body. And we get that with the, yoga, postures, breathing exercises, things like that. Walking, feeling the weight of our body, going barefoot on the earth and things like that. And just feeling our body. And this is important, especially in the time of COVID, because we want to make sure we're healthy, right? So being in touch with our body lets us know if we're healthy, if we're vulnerable, what we need to do to take care of ourselves. It's never been more important for self-care of this body. We can't get enlightened unless we have a body. We have to have a healthy body so that we can live longer, so we have more opportunities for enlightenment. So, we want to live longer, right? And then after we kind of get that, then we move on to mindfulness of feelings or emotions. And this is really like Deepak Chopra always says, it's that yum yuck, right? There's desire and then there's aversion. How does something feel to us? What response does it bring up in our emotions? Are we saying, oh, yum, that's a good thing, or oh, yuck, that's a bad thing? How are we differentiating? How do we feel personally about things? And if we're really in touch, you'll find that there's so much commonality between all of us, because we understand the difference between right and wrong. We understand the difference between good and bad, right? And then once we move on to that, then we can move on to mindfulness of the mind. And this is being aware of our thoughts as they arise, and how so many thoughts arise without even asking for it. It's like, I always say, it's like you're in a room, but there's so much furniture and so much art on the wall and so much stuff. It's like you're in a hoarder's room, right? There's so much stuff and you don't know where to look and you don't know where to think. What you need to do is clear it out, organize it, calm it, because when you walk into an empty room, it's a whole different feeling of calm, right? And the Buddha always talked about empty mind and compassion and altruism. I just watched, it's a Vimeo thing on the Dalai Lama's life. Last night, Greg and I watched it. It was so good. And he talked about this all the time, about taking care of each other, and how spirituality is really where our focus and attention needs to be, because if that's right, then everything else will line up, And then after spiritual mindfulness of the mind, then it's mindfulness of mental objects, which means paying attention to the totality of our experience and the mental qualities that arise. And basically that teaches us how we are creating our world, how our thoughts are the first entry into this world of what is going to happen. Everything starts with an idea, right? So whether it's good or bad or indifferent, we need to have that seed be a good seed filled with love and compassion and intelligence, so that good things are going to arise from it. It has to be fertile soil.
And it's so interesting when you speak of that seed. The reason we're now doing uplifting stories in an untethered world is because Ralph and Gina Stangby were recording this beautiful event of the birth and the nurturing of the nest, including not being too close to it to ensure that nobody is upset. And so they actually, that seed in that nest and their creativity and their care and their compassion for these little baby birds brought that whole idea. I went, oh my gosh, we need to do the uplifting stories now to see about birth and that clean slate. Those birds came in with a clean slate. They don't know about corona or anything else. They know that they were nurtured by their mom and their environment supported them. And wouldn't that be wonderful if we all had that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Knowing that we do once we are in integrity and in right thinking.
There's lessons all around us. And the reason I especially love your stories here is because it's a great way to connect as a community within all of us, to see what everybody else is doing and use it as inspiration. But I mean, animals are just, talk about God's kingdom, those beautiful little birds, so innocent and free and just doing what birds do and not worrying about being judged. That kind of thing, right? I learn from my cat every day. Her world really hasn't changed. She doesn't watch the news or whatever. Her day just kind of goes along. But she still meditates. She does her practices, right? And that has to be our core. That has to be our foundation. Direct everything back to God, or whatever that word looks like for you, higher spirit, universality, Brahman, Krishna, whatever it is for you. If we're angry, we don't have to be angry at our fellow man. Be angry that, just say, God, I need an answer. I need an answer. What can I do? God will give you that answer. If you're sad, say, God, help me. I'm handing my burden over to you. It's more than I can handle right now. And we have that support. And I think a lot of times we don't even realize it.
I agree with you 100%. And I'm old enough now and been in a teaching long enough now where it all comes from divine spirit. It really does. And I do turn it over. One of the things that's been happening is I've been able to be in nature more since we've been sequestered. And it's really interesting. The people that I'm with, my bubble, so to speak, I'm so in tune with that every time I think of them, they show up or call or it is so, or give me what I need, whatever it is. It's fascinating how we talk about, physical handing over things, and physically mindful of being mindful of being kind and compassionate and doing what you can in your own way, like taking care of your animals better, or being closer to them at this time, or your children, or anything else. But it is interesting how that clean slate also allows you to be in the flow. It is like that third eye, that pineal gland is just totally, the pearl that it is being totally cleansed, and we are connected. And I go back to, in that connection, I think we were the first internet before the noise came in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I've got, I don't have any grandchildren in the US, but I've got these two little neighbor girls, 1 and 3, behind me. And of course, I haven't seen them since March, right? And I was just starting to really develop a relationship with them where they knew me and were starting to love me, kind of thing. And I'm like, oh, I miss them so much. How can I keep that bond with them? Because they're not on Facebook. They're little babies, you know? So what I've been doing is I started a fairy garden in my backyard. And every once in a while, I'll like add to it or put something else there. And then I text the mom, come look at the fairy garden. And then the girls will come and see, oh, they discover something else magical. And then she texts me a picture of them. So I'm staying connected with them in that way. And it's giving me more opportunities for creativity and to feel their little kid joy, you know?
Oh, let me, I love fairy garden too. I think the things that have stayed with me most, by the way, on that clean slate were when I was a child, and there were like fairy things that happened, you know, like magical things that I didn't even understand, which was probably just nature, you know, in its own self. But those have stayed with me on a deeper level than most things. And I believe that spirit is still open and receptive for that beginner's mind, for that innocence. And I want to tell you one miracle story, and then we'll go back and talk about mindfulness and letting go. Is my daughter was supposed to go back to work, and she doesn't. It's so complicated. You don't think about this, but because of the coronavirus, she can't bring people into her bubble, into her home that are not in her, you know, her protected bubble right now, energetic wise and physically. And everything unfolded in her life so perfectly. Her in-laws said, yes, I'll help. I'm helping. And she doesn't have to go to work. Everything's done online. And so it is amazing. It's truly like a miracle again. And to me, it's that saying, I don't know what to do here. And something greater than I am will have the solution if I just let go and open up to it. And it's just magical. It's one of those magical things. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's like you were talking about, the topic is meditation in action. So let's talk about the action part of it now. Yeah. And in Vedanta, action is basically karma yoga. Karma yoga is working for the benefit of others. And eventually, by working for the benefit of others, you understand that really you're working for God, and God is working through you, right? So what you just gave is a perfect example of karma yoga in you and the other grandparents stepping up and supporting your daughter, right, in that time. And there's so many opportunities for all of us to do that right now. My mom is in a senior center, the Reserve in Thousand Oaks, and they're basically not allowed to go anywhere. They can't have visitors, and they can't go out. They can't even go into their common areas right now because that whole community is so vulnerable and at risk. So my job now is once a week, I go do her grocery shopping and then drop them off at her back door and leave, right? But that's my karma yoga that I can do. And we can think of so many things that we can do to help the community and even, you know, our small bubble like you're talking about, but even the bigger picture. I have another friend who's been going around to grocery stores and picking up leftover produce that would otherwise get thrown out, but it's perfectly good. They just not good enough to sell. And she brings it to Watts, to where there's a lot of poor families who don't have access to any of that. So that's what she does once a week, which is remarkable.
That brought me to tears. How wonderful.
There's never a lack of need. That's the thing. Since there's never a lack of need, there's no reason for us to ever say, well, there's nothing I can do, or I'm bored, or blah. I mean, come on. Yeah. With the program, people.
In closing, you've given us some wonderful, mindful practices and reminded us of what we can do in our own little bubbles, so to speak. What are your mindfulness? What are you? I know what you just told me, but what are you doing now in this mindful period of your life, sequestered?
Well, the main thing is I'm taking a lot more online classes because through the Vedanta Society, if you just go to youtube.com/Vedanta.org, you'll see like every day we have free online classes. And I'm doing a lot of those, like sometimes 2, 3 a day. But, I'm sticking with my spiritual practice like more so than I ever have before. I've got such a routine. And I go and do my meditation in the morning and prayer and chanting. And then I have the same thing in the evening too with the Vedanta Society online. So it's like no excuses not to show up because everybody kind of comes together. And I'm doing it more than ever before because basically it used to be like I felt like just me in my house doing it. So nobody didn't know if I didn't do it or whatever, right? It's just on me. But now when you've got this community to answer to and everybody's showing up, they're like, well, where were you? So it's really good. It's keeping me going.
Yeah. Oh, and you know what else is interesting is since we've been online, we have thousands of people now that we reach. And my message always is having someone like you on, giving us wonderful tools and uplifting us in a greater way, and showing the good. There's been so much good in my life from this. And one of the things I was afraid of is all the responsibility with the babies. And it has brought, we're going to be bonded, forever throughout time and eternity. We are going to be bonded. So with my grandchildren, and I would not have had this opportunity if it weren't for COVID. And my children, they're so precious to me, and now more than ever, just now more than ever, because we can't just casually get together anymore. It's a planned thing, and we do it. Planned distancing thing.
Yeah, and I love that you have the morning meditations at 9 o'clock on Facebook Live, which I mean, that's a perfect spiritual practice for people to do is just hop onto your Facebook page and meditate along with you. That's like beautiful that you've offered that. And you should keep that going no matter what.
Thank you, Lissa. Thank you very much. In closing, would you like to say anything at all? I love having you with us. Your generosity of spirit and everything is just always amazing to me. You're a wonderful example of living the divine spirit within. You're living it without, just to share.
Well, thank you. You're like my best PR person. I appreciate that so much. And no, just know that this is such a beautiful community we have here. And, we are here for each other, even if it's online. We're still hanging in.
Yeah. Well, I love you, and I just want to say thank you so much.
Of course.
And just wonderful to be with you, and soon in person, I hope. Soon in person, because even social distancing, we can do this. Okay. Thank you, Lissa. Thank you for all of what you share, and just everyone knowing that we make a difference. And again, if you don't know, think about how this virus spread droplet by droplet by droplet around the world in a very short time. And those thoughts of who we are and how we show up and how we shine our light and accept that self responsibility, knowing that everything we see out there that looks like it's them, it's us too. And it's us to cleanse that so that it can be cleansed in the world as well. Because we are
Absolutely.
in a drop, and we are that that world in a sand in a piece of sand, in a kernel of sand.
Yeah, let me just add one more thing. I'm saying let's combat all the negativity with kindness. And I have a campaign to make kindness go viral, and it's online. If you go to everythingkind.com, you can take the vow and join the kindness movement. And we want to make that go viral.
Okay, thank you very, very much. And anything else you want? Do you want to talk about your musical that's coming up? Are you ready?
It's coming up. I'm working on it every day, which is good. But when it's ready, I'll make a big announcement. But for now, just go to everythingkind.com.
Okay, thank you so much. Blessings galore, and we'll see you very soon. And I will go on Vedanta.org. I love the Vedanta Society, but I love